Hey guys, welcome to Bro Talk. Welcome to another episode on the same book, 48 Laws of Power. Today, we'll be talking about the following two chapters, chapters 25 and 26, which we will be learning and extracting a lot of lessons out of these chapters that we can apply to our daily lives. So please come tune in, come listen, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. Back to the grind. Um, um, Law 25 and Law 26, very interesting. I think obviously we found one law a little bit more interesting than the other one, which we'll probably talk more about. But both of them overall are really good.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start off with Law 25. Law 25 starts off with the title Recreate Yourself. The judgment is do not accept the roles that society foists on you. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. Incorporate dramatic devices into your public gestures and actions. Your power will be enhanced and your character will seem larger than life.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting chapter. It's like recreate yourself is like, in a sense, be your own person in a sense, self-made.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of what I understood from this chapter in a sense where like have your own identity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what. Well, let's start off with you. What were you able to take out from this chapter? Like a few lessons.
So there's a lot to take out of here, actually. I think what first of all, what I learned from this is that, well, again, this book likes to put a lot of focus on reputation, because when you have a good reputation, then you have power,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the context of like power dynamics and so forth, right? But what he's really trying to say is that reputation is not something that comes to you. It is something that you design. It's something that you can mold, and you can kind of make your own path, because identity is not fixed. That's what he's really trying to say. The identity you have control over it, and you can change it if you decide to. And I wrote something here that identity is a performance, right? The identity is a tool to help you a lot of the times get to your goals. It's a tool, and it's not really a truth, because you can change it. Power comes from being intentional, right? And I also wrote humans. I'm sorry. Wait, most people, I'm sorry, are trapped by their past selves. The biggest prison isn't trauma, but it's consistency. People feel that they need to remain loyal to old beliefs, old reputations, old being in the same place where you've been your entire life, right? And this is called identity inertia, right? So again, a lot of the times, what he's trying to say here
Mm-hmm.
is that a lot of times people stay in the same positions in life because they were like, I need to stay loyal to what I've always been. But
Mm-hmm.
he's saying in this chapter, you don't have to stay where you've always been, because identity is not fixed. You can change your identity, right? You can change it. And when you change it, you can be seen as larger than life. You can do a lot more, because identity is not fixed. And this is a fascinating concept, because he's basically saying you don't have to stick to your old life, because a lot of the time sticking to your old life is not going to do you any good. Maybe you're even wrong, right? If you stick to your old. And again, I'm not saying I don't think he's saying with everything, right? Because maybe there's certain values or certain morals that you were raised with that you agree with, and you don't want to change that. But he's saying a lot of the times people, they just don't, they stay stuck. There's no movement, and it's because they are not comfortable enough by recreating themselves, because they think how I came to this world or how I am now, that's the way I need to stay, because that's the best for me. And he's saying no, that is not true. And then he goes into giving the example of Julius Caesar,
Mm-hmm.
right? I also kind of understood him saying, right? Again, you can always say that all these laws is about manipulation one way or another.
Yeah, of
But
course.
from what my subjective reading of it is that I don't think this law is not really about manipulating, but it's really about human agency. And it's that identity is flexible, right? Identity is flexible. And we as humans, because we have autonomy, we have agency, we are responsible for our influence, our image, the trajectory of our life when it comes to love, finances, all these things. So because we're responsible for it, right, it becomes a responsibility to self-create or to recreate ourselves so we can hit our goals. And I was thinking, like, there's many examples of this, like in the Hebrew Bible or in history, that this is a good thing to recreate yourself so you can become a better version of yourself. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, one thing I loved about this chapter when I read it, it shows how adaptability has power in it, right? Being able to evolve, being able to, in a sense, reinvent yourself, not being like stuck in your own ways. Um, Meaning, like, I mean, the first example that I always think of is like sports. Sports
Mm,
don't remain the same throughout time. Sports change, right? Like the perfect example I could think of is basketball. Basketball in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s was not the same. Therefore, if you played in those eras, or if you were capable of playing in those eras, you had to change your game because the same way you played basketball in the early 2000s is not the same way you play now.
mm,
Back then, there was probably uh, much more aggression and defense. Nowadays, there's more offense. The game is more evolved around offense. And if
mm,
you're the type of player that can't adapt and just like, oh no, I only play defense, and you can't play offense, and you can't play nowadays in the game because you haven't evolved. You haven't like reinvented yourself. You haven't adapted to like what modern times has brought you, right?
mm,
So, um, one thing that I saw that this law teaches is that adaptability is power and that you are not fixed, meaning that you can't just always accept a permanent role, and that could be applied to many aspects in life because it's like you lose some type of leverage.
mm,
um Also, one of the things that I liked about this chapter was never let your past mistakes or current position define your future.
mm,
Meaning, you never know what's to come.
mm,
I believe this can also be applied to. I mean, you brought up religion, the ways you view life as a parent, as an adult, as a teenager, right? Sometimes opinions. You might think of something nowadays that you think it's right, but the moment you're able to obviously show a humble side of you and be able to adapt to maybe a wrong opinion, a wrong belief that you had, I think that shows some, not only some great type of strength that you have in you, but some type of humility as well.
mm.
And that all starts with being able to adapt.
Hmm. So I guess I have a question. I guess what's the difference then between, because maybe there's a difference between adapting and versus recreating yourself, your identity. Because when you're recreating or you're making a new identity, and the whole thing is that your identity is flexible and is not fixed, you're changing it.
Yeah.
Right now, adapting, you are changing, but I think the level is different
Yeah.
though.
It's a complete different, yes.
Yeah, right.
It's a complete difference. And like, I mean, the first example that comes to mind is religion. I don't know
Mm.
why. It's always
Uh,
theology. If you go from Christian to Jew or vice versa, that's a
mhm,
complete reinvention of yourself.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
that's
Yes.
that's not in a sense adapting, because one in a sense one is the old Torah and one is the New Testament.
Hmm.
Two different things, two
Hmm.
different beliefs, right? Um, while adapting, I feel like that would be like moving to like a different sect in your religion.
Hmm.
Meaning that
Okay.
if you're a Christian
Hmm.
and let's say you grew up a Catholic, but now
Hmm.
you're a Baptist.
Okay. I mean, there
So
are big differences though.
there are big differences, but like the message, well, not well, the message usually always stays the same as long as you know you're promoting good stuff. But it's like the belief of like at least Jesus
Uh,
and the Messiah and God. But there are key differences inside. But that's more of like, okay, I'm not reinventing myself because the main message of my religion hasn't changed,
hmm.
or the belief system hasn't changed. There are just certain nuances in there that this sect interprets it differently than what we do.
Hmm.
I believe not that that's adaptability, but that's like changing slightly compared to completely reinventing yourself.
Well, or maybe there's different levels, right?
Of
To
course, yeah.
to recreating yourself versus going from a Catholic to Baptist and then going from Catholic to, like, let's say a Muslim, let's say. So
Right.
like maybe you still are recreating yourself, but the levels are just different. Because I mean, Catholic to Baptist, I mean, in my opinion, I think that is a big change. Okay, of course, not the ultimate big change, but there is a lot of big differences. From what I understand, there are big differences because one's Protestant, one's Catholicism, one accepts, the Pope as infallible, right? You got
Mhm.
traditions plus the New Testament. Baptist is sola scriptura, just the Bible. There's no Pope. There's no the church. There's no well, not church fathers, but there's like no Vatican. There's no tradition. Just sola scriptura, right? So, but maybe there's just different levels of it, and it's not like 100%, right?
No, I definitely believe there's levels to it. I believe it's easier to adapt to that. Let's
Hmm.
say because at the end of the day, when you adapt, you have to change.
Hmm.
So all of this revolves around changing, whether
Hmm.
you're completely reinventing yourself or you're just adapting. So that type of adaptation is like I'm not completely changing my
Hmm.
beliefs to something major
Hmm.
in a sense where I'm changing it now to something minor, but the whole concept of the belief is still the same.
Hmm. Like the overall message you're
The
saying.
overall message in that sect compared to this sect is the same.
Hmm.
It's just nuances and certain details, I guess,
Hmm.
that we differ in.
Hmm.
But it's easier to adapt to that. That's like a certain type of adaptation, a
Hmm.
certain type of change.
That's
Um,
easier, you're saying.
and it's an easier level, right?
Hmm.
Rather than completely changing your entire life to a whole nother religion where that would, that would change your identity to like a much different level, right? And
Gotcha.
that's what like this chapter is talking about, right? Um, your a lot of people treat like your identity like your performance in a sense.
Hmm.
So like that's why it's important to always adapt, evolve, and change and reinvent yourself. But obviously, we're talking about the examples we gave is just completely different. It's not the same. I mean, a minor example that I could apply to daily lives is like parenting, right? At least through studies, through psychology, we've been able to realize that at least through the Hispanic community, I don't want to speak for everybody, but the way that they raise us usually with like the tough love, not that it's completely bad, but it has its negative effects on it.
Hmm. Correct.
But through studies and obviously evolving through time, we've been able to adapt and change and kind of, in a sense, reinvent ourselves. We are reinvent our identity as parents.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe there are certain things we don't want to follow, but there are certain things that we still do want to, put out there.
So you're saying, like, for example, like if we're gonna go according to the definition here, right? Because you're right, there are some differences. Like, for example, so if you were raised in a Hispanic household, let's say, and you were
Mm-hmm.
raised with this tough love, macho, right, type of mentality as a son, let's say, but then when you have your own children, maybe you don't want to accept the role that the Hispanic society foisted or gave you, right? So then you're gonna recreate yourself by forging a new identity.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, here says one that commands attention and never bores the audience. And I think depending on your career or how you want your life to go, you definitely might have to do that. But you're saying be the master of your own image rather than let others define it for you. So you're saying, for example, I'm not going to let how I was raised define how I'm going to be as a parent. Yes, it's going to have some influence, but I'm going to change it, recreate how I think about this, my identity on being a parent. I see that this didn't work, and you just mentioned because there's studies, different psychological theories, and
Mm-hmm.
data that proves that maybe this form of parenting is not good. So you're saying I'm going to change my identity on because my identity is flexible when it comes to parenting. I'm not going to be forced by how I was raised, and I'm going to change it up to be a better father, let's say. Is that what you're saying, kind of?
Yeah, I believe we all do that. I believe sometimes we don't realize it. I mean, not everybody, but we subconsciously recreate ourselves. In the
Mm-hmm.
sense where, like, um, because it's an honest move in life. I don't. It's not dishonest at all. Meaning, like, you growing up, you're gonna change your opinions. You're gonna change the way you think. You're gonna, depending on what information you read or is provided to you, or your studies or your research, you're gonna be able to be like, you know what? No, confronting this or approaching this problem this way isn't necessarily the correct way.
Mm,
I believe through X reasons. Therefore, you approach it differently, and you can potentially have different results as well.
mm,
So you don't always have to stick to the past or stick to the way you know you were taught things, because nothing stays the same. I think
mm.
times change, language changes, and the moment that you're stuck in your ways, you're not able to show some type of adaptability, and then you're left behind. Not
Be-
only not only you're left behind, but ah, I don't me quiero desviar. I don't want to
Go off topic.
go off topic a bit, but it's like, if you don't recreate yourself, I believe you start living in the shadows of the person before you.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, examples differ depending on circumstances, but I don't think it's the best to be under someone's shadow. I believe
Mm,
that it's okay to be under someone's shadow for a certain period of time and take their advice, take their leadership skills, whatever it involves. But at a certain point, you do have to, as we say as men, be your own man and create your own identity, right? Solve things the way you do it. Can't necessarily always do it the way someone else did it. Just because it worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
no, I definitely agree with that. Yes, you're right. Just
I know
because
I moved a little bit from like right to left, but
no, that's fine. And I think, I mean, yes, everyone does change a little bit, right? Some people change more than others. But I think what the author, what's his name? Robert Greene, for Law 25, what he's really trying to say is do this on purpose. Like, I think he's like also, and I'll give the example of Julius Caesar, which I thought was a phenomenal example,
hmm
right? It's on page 192, right, which is observance of the law. But what I was going to say before I mentioned Julius Caesar is
hmm
that I think, yes, everyone will change their mind about certain things, but the author is also saying, like, hey, do this on purpose. Like go through your life, right, and see what is it you want to get or improve, or see what is it that you want to be known as, and then recreate yourself, and then do things that are out of the norm or that make you different, so that you can become popular or you can become famous or different and unique, so that people want to follow you or support you and so forth. And I think, like, if you're going to get into politics, or an influencer or an actor, or you're going to be a public figure, this will really come in handy, where you need to differentiate yourself and make yourself very different so you can have a following. And the example of Julius Caesar, when I read this, he really just created a persona that differentiated him in a culture during the Roman Empire, in a
Mhm.
culture of sameness, right? Right. And then I found this quote: "People mock what they don't understand until power confirms it." I'll say it again: people mock or make fun of what they don't understand until power confirms it. So Julius Caesar was very, when people think of Julius Caesar, think of like this macho guy that everyone loved and so forth. But as I was reading this, and then I did a little bit of research, right? During the Roman Empire, Roman elite valued conservative dressing, emotional restraint, like stoicism, right? But Julius Caesar was actually the opposite of this Roman elite.
Mhm.
Julius Caesar, he used to like really groom himself a lot. Julius Caesar was known to be a very feminine man, and he actually wore loose tunics with fringed sleeves. So it was completely different on how the Roman elite would dress, right? Another thing that I found fascinating, and here it says like he was known to put these spectacles, these fights with gladiators, these hunts, like he got known to be this leader who was just known for like huge parties. The way he was just talking would like entice people. But Julius Caesar, since his 30s, was always in debt for millions and millions, right? He was always in debt actually, because he wanted to live away. He wanted to live lavishly. He sponsored a lot of public events, and he did so much out of his own pocket. But why did he do this? Because he wanted people to perceive him a certain way, even though it
Mhm.
wasn't the reality. But at the end of the day, people follow trajectory. They're not going to follow the balance sheet, right? So he wanted to be this person who, like, he was lavish and fancy, and just the way he spoke, like everyone was so in tune and just were attracted to him because of just who he was. It was like he was this godlike persona that everyone just wanted to follow and listen to and just hear what he had to say. So he did everything in his power to recreate himself, to make himself this way. And that's why he was not only known, but armies would follow him. People would want to be him, follow him, support him no matter what. So I just thought that was a fascinating comparison.
So basically, he was different.
Very different.
So like he was
Very different.
very. I'm pretty sure he like. Can you repeat the quote that you said earlier?
Oh, that people mock what they don't understand until power confirms it.
Until power confirms. So I can imagine he probably did get mocked um
Probably, yeah.
at first
Yes, because how different he
because of
was.
how different he was, right? And then as time passed and it
Hmm.
became popular, it became like a trend. It became very cool. Power confirmed that, you know, this is the new thing now.
Probably, yeah.
And
Probably, yeah.
everyone else started it's like the trends nowadays, right? Oh, I, d- I don't know. There's so many freaking trends out there. But anything that becomes popular starts to become like accepted in a sense.
Yes, once it becomes popular.
Once it becomes popular, and that's the power confirming it.
Yes, because it became popular now, and now everyone's doing it or they're following it now.
Right.
Right? And Julius Caesar, there's a quote here, says he was the master of his public image, of which he was forever aware. When he appeared before crowds, he wore the most spectacular purple robes. He was upstaged by no one. It says here, which is on page 193. He was vain about his appearance. Um, And he was a masterful orator. So again, there was so much about him that was just, he recreated his own identity. His identity was flexible. He was aware of his public image, and he made sure that it stayed dynamic, but it also made sure that it was always enticing people in, because we see that then he got into politics. You know, he was playing the long-term game, right? He wanted power. He got into the Senate, and he was able to do a lot of this stuff because his identity, he recreated himself, and he was aware of what he was doing, and he was just such a unique figure that he just attracted all types of life, all types of people.
I mean, yeah, it does say that he was perhaps the first public figure to understand the vital link between power and theater. That's what kind of made him so intriguing
Mm-hmm.
to the audience. And it also says in page 194, also like him, you must be constantly aware of your audience, of what will please them and what will bore them. You must
Mm-hmm.
arrange yourself at the center to command attention. Very interesting. I mean, I feel like you can apply these type of stories because, like you said, he was first dressing a certain way, then he got into theater, then he got into politics, right? So it was
Mm-hmm.
easier for him to transition. Wouldn't that apply to like very popular, famous people nowadays too, that start off their career one way and then they start like changing and adapting and reinventing themselves and then fall into like another category of life when it comes to like your career?
100%. Yeah, artists do this all the time, or actors or singers. Yeah, 100%. That's what they do, and they have to engross you. They have to like really like grab you so that you're stimulated. You're like, oh, who is this person, right? Like it's a shock factor. And I think a great example of this is like if someone says, I'm a shy person, I'm a shy person, right? If you say that you're a shy person, and maybe you are because your parents were shy, you were born that way, but the character that you were born with doesn't necessarily mean that's who you are. You can change it. Again, you might always be still shy on the inside, but you can recreate yourself, change your identity, and now you're not the shy person anymore. And now there's different sides of you because you're trying to advance in certain parts of your life to get what you want. And that's the whole thing here, which is just because you maybe, and again, I'm quoting certain things from page 195, which I think are pretty important. The keys
Yeah.
to power, that beyond the things you've inherited, your parents, your friends, and your peers, they maybe help shape your personality, which is true, right? You are the way you are based off environment, nurture, and also a mix of free will, right? But the task here that the successful people do, as he says, is to take control of the process, stop allowing others that ability to limit and hold you, and you take control of who you are and you change it to advance. And I think a great example of this is from the Hebrew Bible, the story of Joseph the righteous, Joseph Hasadik, the son of Jacob,
Yeah.
the one that got sold by his brothers to
Right.
Egypt and so forth. If we think about it, the beginning of the story, he's like this young, like, naive, young guy, right? Who's like a dreamer. But the one I want to focus on is that he was a victim. Think about it. His own brothers sold him for whatever the
Yeah.
reason. They sold him. He went to Egypt. He's a slave, right? And then once he starts to go up the ranks, then we have the wife of Potiphar accuses him of sexual immorality. Then he
Yeah.
gets thrown back into jail. He's there for many years. He's a victim. Think about it. He's a victim, right? But what happens at the end? He becomes the viceroy of Egypt, according to the story, the second in command, from a slave and a prisoner all the way to becoming the viceroy of Egypt. He was a victim, and he was. It's not a lie. But at the end, he becomes this triumphant guy who wasn't even an Egyptian. He was a stranger, and he makes it. He takes a hold of the situation. He changes destiny. He changes it, right? And he takes it and he's like, yes, I am a victim, but I'm going to change what's happened to me, right? And I'm going to make this better. He recreates himself, right? And of course, this is all with God's help, of course, but putting the human psychology on first place just for this scenario. He changes it completely, and he shapes his destiny by recreating himself. And look what happens. So yeah.
No, I think it's a great example, and I believe that example shows that, like I'm repeating myself since the beginning, there's a lot of power in adaptability. There's a lot of power in change, because all those circumstances, and maybe he had to go through those circumstances, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But by him being in those circumstances, it required him to change. It required him to adapt. Sometimes some of us need to be put in those situations to change for the good, right? Some of us don't. Some of us don't need to go through that to be able to change, which is why it's so powerful that, like you said in page 195, it obviously we have things that come from us, the way we grow up, the way we're raised, our genes, the way our parents are, and then we tend to take that and implement that on us. But that doesn't mean you can't change. That doesn't mean you can't adapt, right? And sometimes I feel like as human beings, we're stuck in our ways.
Yes.
We've learned before in previous chapters that the way to change is usually there's only like two ways to change, which is through trauma, or if you're an active person that's constantly changing yourself, or working on it, constantly adapting, right? And if you don't fall in any of those two categories, you're most likely not changing. So that falls a lot into this chapter of constantly recreating yourself, obviously depending on circumstances, and obviously not putting yourself a limit. Because when you gave the example of this whole shy boy, it kind of reminded me of myself. Like I grew up very shy. I grew up not very outspoken, in a sense, keeping things to myself, not wanting to party or like do other stuff just because I was like so timid. And I believe that came through raising my environment and my parents as well. Well, usually my dad. But as I got older, I remember speaking to you, and you were like the total opposite person. And you were like, there's going to be moments where you're going to have to stop being this timid person. Because why? Because these moments could like ruin opportunities for you,
or be life-changing
for you. Sometimes you have to come out of the shell and either adapt, either evolve, or either reinvent yourself in different ways where it could serve you a good purpose in your life.
That's a good way of looking at it. And it's true, because like you were very shy growing up. Now you shut up, but I'm just kidding. No, but you like to debate now. You really
now people, I love to debate, and I feel like people hate that about me. And well, they don't hate it. Okay, I'm sorry, I used the incorrect word. There are certain people
that dislike
my my so-so behavior of wanting to debate, of wanting to challenge myself, because we tend to agree on a lot of things.
I would say that it's because a lot of these people that, I mean, I'm not going to say names or why, but I would say it's because a lot of the people that you are surrounded with were raised in an environment where debate is seen as bad or apostasy, or as like evil.
Yeah, and it's so crazy, and that's something you and I had to like change about ourselves, reinvent. Because it's like at first growing up, it was okay. No, you can't ask why, can't challenge yourself. Oh, you can't say that. It's just this way because it's this way. But as we've gotten older, as we've gotten much more wiser, we've gotten to learn that, you know what, debate isn't necessarily a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
It's not. It's actually supposed to be a fabulous thing where not only you are challenging yourself, but it's reinforcing what you believe in, whether that's theological or not. If you're able to support your arguments with evidence or with good arguments in what you stand for, what you believe in, or in a difference of opinion, it can reinforce what you believe in, or it can actually cause you to change and be like, no, I was wrong. And there's
Correct.
nothing wrong about that. It actually makes you, for a lack of word, I don't know, just makes you a better person, a person that's more competent in a sense to understand the realities of life and the changes that come with it. Get what I'm
I
saying?
No, no, I do understand what you, and I think you're right. I think you're also trying to say that it makes you a more nuanced person. It makes you more understanding because it's true. If you're Because debate is supposed to help you get to the truth, right? Because yeah, I'm sorry, go.
It makes you understand that not everything's black and white.
Then not everything is binary. That's just this or
Exactly.
that.
There's a lot of gray to life. But finish what you were saying.
No, you know, because it's true. There is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it depends also what kind of ethical system you're looking at life through.
Of course. Yes. Yes.
Which some ethical systems do make you look at life more binary or like black and white. But putting that to aside, I think what you're trying to say is that because debate is supposed to help you get to the truth, help you as close as possible get to the objective truth.
Correct.
It helps you weed out weak arguments or things that don't make sense or show you what is good evidence or not evidence and so forth, right? But it makes you realize that things are a lot more nuanced, a lot more complex, and that maybe one thing has more truth to it than the other. But then you realize, okay, why does it have more truth? How do we get to that? How do we get that? So there's so much involved here, right? But I would agree with you. It definitely helps out. And yes, you and I had to change that because the way we were raised. And I think later on we realized, no, debate is good, right? We need to change our mentality, right? I definitely had to change a lot of things about on how I thought about life or God or people, society, different religions, ethical systems, right? Just so much. So by me doing that, I had to recreate myself because you're right. I cannot. You have to change your identity to then think differently as well. But you
Yeah.
have to be open to that because, and you kind of said it, and I don't think you meant it this way. When you debate, you're right. A lot of times people debate because it helps them double down to make them feel like, oh, whatever I believe in, I'm going to double
Yeah.
down on it because I'm right, because I'm
Yeah.
hearing myself, right? And I'm right. But a lot of times it makes more harm than good. Yeah.
I believe what you're trying to say. There's a difference between debating in good faith, meaning with an open mind,
Mm-hmm.
or debating with a closed mind.
Yeah, because you could do both. You're right. Yeah.
You could do both. Where like some people aren't scared of debating, but they're not open minded at all. They just
Mm-hmm.
gotta double down, double down, double down, and then it comes to a point where okay, you can say this X, Y, and Z, but where's your evidence? Where's the research?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or let's compare data, stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than the person that is debating in good faith or willing to change their mind if proven wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I believe you get closer to the truth, to the objective truth.
Mm-hmm. If you can get there. Yeah. But yeah.
If you can get there, right? Or at least close enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember growing up being so scared to debate or just being closed off to it in a sense. Just because things were a certain way. And that's just how it was supposed to be. And it wasn't supposed to change.
We should definitely do an episode in the future. And I mean, not talk about it right now, but we should definitely talk about it in the future, how we were raised and what we thought, and then how we changed it and why. And maybe some of the flaws we see and how we were raised and why.
Right.
We should definitely do an episode about that. I'm telling you.
Yeah. And trust me, I always try to help the people around me where like are scared to debate, or
Well,
like
hopefully they watch our episodes.
hopefully, right? Because it's like only because I'm debating, it doesn't mean it's a bad argument. We just we're going in a sense back and forth
Mm-hmm.
or something, but there should be a good result behind it, or there should be some type of compromise, some type of middle ground, or some type of conclusion. But I feel like a lot of people would run from it or aren't so used to it. Like, listen, I'll bring this up. I see a great example not only between you and me when we debate, but
Mm-hmm.
also like between you and your wife.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you guys will disagree, and she'll tell you, "No, I don't necessarily agree with that," or you tell her, and then you guys just it's like a quick back and forth, but and then it comes to a conclusion or it comes to a middle ground, and then there's not necessarily a fight
No.
just because someone decided to quote unquote go against you or challenge you for something. It's like there's nothing bad about that, and I feel like either consciously or subconsciously, human beings we kind of like push that away.
Well, yeah, because it affects the ego and it affects our self identity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you can get cognitive dissonance, which I'll
Yeah.
speak about in the next law. I just
Okay.
want to end this law with something on page
Yes. Yes.
198, which is something that you were saying actually. Page 198, it says, finally, learn to play many roles, to be whatever the moment requires. Adapt your mask to the situation. Be protean in the faces you wear, right? And then he gives an example of Bismarck. He says, to be a liberal, he was a liberal. To a hawk, he was a hawk. He could not be grasped, and what cannot be grasped cannot be consumed, right?
Love that. I actually highlighted that. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I put parentheses in that. I
Yeah.
thought it was
Yeah.
great because when you recreate yourself and you understand that identity is flexible and that you can have multiple hats, multiple hats or different masks, depending on who you're with, right? Some people would say that's manipulating, right? But I think well, first of all, I think it definitely depends on intention, right? Um, but a lot of times our intentions are good. Oh, I want to, I want to get elected to be this politician, or I want to be the president of this club, or I want to do this or do that because I want to bring good. I want to reduce this, or I want to increase that. So it's true when you talk to different people, a lot of the time, I'm not going to say always, but a lot of the times you have to adapt to who you're speaking with,
Mm-hmm.
because you're only going to get to your goal if you know how to speak to people. You can communicate effectively if you know how to talk to different people with different mindsets or ways of looking at life or perspectives. You have to adapt by making sure that your identity is flexible, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. You're just recreating yourself being flexible so then you can hit different goals in your life, especially the more ambitious you are. I think you should definitely apply this more.
Right. And I just love that. It says what cannot be grasped cannot be consumed.
Very true.
Very true. Love
Very
that.
true.
And there's no reversal to this law technically. Um,
According to him, yes. There
according
is.
to him. But is there? Follow. Come to our next episode in which we
Yeah. See if this reversal to law 25.
yeah.
All right, I'll read law 26, okay?
Okay, go for it.
So this is a two-parter of law 26.
It's
I definitely
crazy.
think one was more interesting than the other, but let's go to it. Law 26 is keep your hands clean because of bacteria. I'm just kidding.
Nice.
It just says keep your hands clean. The judgment, you must seem a paragon of civility and efficiency. Your hands are never soiled by mistakes and nasty deeds. Maintain such a spotless appearance by using others as scapegoats and cat's paws to disguise your involvement.
Crazy. Um,
Dangerous too. This can actually be very dangerous, actually.
very dangerous. In part one at the top it says our good name and reputation depend more on what we conceal than on what we reveal. Everyone makes mistakes, but those who are truly clever manage to hide them and make sure someone else is blamed. A convenient scapegoat should always be kept around for such moments.
Hmm.
Could be very dangerous. This this chapter overall,
Hmm.
just I guess depending on how you use it. Even in the first example it gives, it it talks about, I believe, what's this guy's in China's mighty Han Empire.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, this was a crazy story.
yeah, I was like, wow, this is so extreme. To just
This is the extreme way of looking at this. Yeah.
right to just like get to a point where I believe I don't even know how to pronounce his name. It was Tasao?
I think it's South South.
South Sao?
South South, yeah.
South Sao. Um he was getting a lot of complaints from, the army and its people. Not enough food, I believe it was.
Yeah. Not
And
enough.
they started to, to murmur and wanting to complain. And he was scared of losing control, of damaging, like this whole book focuses on his
Mhm.
reputation. So there was different ways he could have dealt with it. He could have been honest, but at least in his eyes, him showing some type of honesty and some type of like uh not humility, but I guess him showing that he's human and doing a mistake was a sign of weakness,
Mhm.
while approaching it aggressively by cutting what was one of the chiefs' head off was gonna solve everything. And in a sense, it did, because it stunned, like it says, it stunned and intimidated everybody because of his act of violence.
Mhm.
And instead of him getting the blame, others got the blame. And he used like what they call a scapegoat.
Mhm.
And I don't think beheading somebody to show some type of dominance and power and tell them, don't worry, I'll take care of your family, is the best way to go about this. Um, but I believe what the author was trying to teach in this, at least in this part, in this law, is that reputation is so much power, and that once it's damaged, it
Mhm.
influences weakness.
Mhm.
And usually powerful people don't want to be associated or directly associated with like the dirty work, the blame, or certain unpleasant actions. Therefore, they use a scapegoat or like assign someone else to do it or blame
Mhm.
someone else. Therefore, they could remain like respectable, they can remain untouchable.
Mhm.
That's kind of like the few lessons I took out of this chapter, just because um the reputation is so like enforced, not enforced, but it's so spoken about on
Mhm.
like to always remain and continue to have power.
I think, so is that you're definitely right with what you're saying. And I think also, if you're not a person in power, like if you're like, maybe for us is a little more difficult to understand because we're not the president of a country, we're not the prime minister, we're not leading an army,
Yeah,
right? Also, not this was like back in the day, right?
of
Like
course,
this
not
was in the second century AD, right? So this is like 150 to 170 years after like Jesus died. Like that's how long a time ago we're talking,
yeah,
right? So things were different, but it's interesting because Cao Cao, he made a mistake, right? He miscalculated when the supplies of grain was going to come to the capital. He made a mistake.
what a
And
dumb man.
yes, making mistakes is human. But from what I'm understanding here is just that the author is saying here that, listen, you saying sorry is not going to solve anything. Like, it's not going to fill people's stomachs up. You apologizing or anything. What it does, it gives people doubt now. They're like, wow, if he messed up doing this, right? Or if he's doing all these things and he
Mhm.
forgot this or he messed up this, what else can he not do? And then that can lead to rebellion, right?
Yes.
It can lead to someone else be like, I can do a better job. And that's just human nature, where humans, we are ambitious. humans, we're always looking for the next best thing, because that's what makes societies go, or that's what makes like, you know, that's just in our human nature. So he's like, let me put the blame on him, because guess what? Now the distraction is not on myself.
Correct.
I pushed the this bad attention from me to this person, and now they saw how I dealt with it. So now they saw how I dealt with it. So even if some people know the truth, it still scares them, because they're like, look how extreme he is. But again, most of the time, people are not going to know the truth. They're just not going to. So people are going to be, they're going to be fearful. And a lot of times instilling fear can get you further than instilling love in people, right? Because a lot of times people are more motivated by fear than love, right? Do you know what I
Yeah. Sometimes they ask the question. What's the question? Do you prefer to be feared or loved? Something like that.
mean?
And everyone always has a different answer, because when you fear someone, that could bring a lot of, like,
Mm-hmm.
you could be scary in a sense towards somebody, and
Mm-hmm.
that person is going to hesitate to ever want to, like, rebel against you or do something against you. While love could do the same thing, but it just does it in a different manner.
Because there's a different psychological process that's going when someone feels fear and then love. But I think
But
we spoke about this before in the past, right? In another
yeah,
episode.
I feel like when you fear some that person, you'd be like, oh my god, the consequences.
Mm.
Right? I'm gonna get hit, or I'm gonna die, or
Mm.
my family, something like that, right? Usually that's what that type of fear brings along. Whether love is like, damn, I don't want to disappoint this person. This person has, like, done so much for me.
Maybe.
I mean, yeah, like I said, it depends on circumstances, but I feel like it's usually that's the psyche behind
Mm-hmm.
these type of feelings when you disappoint.
But I think the most interesting thing about this chapter is, and I think towards the end of the chapter, there's a section that talks about, which I'll get to later, but it's like, when do you use a scapegoat or not? Right? Like when it, because we can debate this. We can say, listen, it's good for a leader to be honest, and to be humble, and to show the people that are underneath him, hey, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, because it can be a good example, right? And it can humanize the person, and people will respect you more because you took the harder route out, versus, or maybe the opposite, which was the story, right? Because the tactic of using a scapegoat, as he says in page 203 in Keys to Power, he says the use of scapegoats is as old as civilization itself.
Correct.
Examples of it can be found in all cultures around the world. And then in the other paragraph, he says, it is an extremely human response to not look inward after a mistake or crime, but rather to look outward and to affix blame and guilt on a convenient object or on another person, right? And I was looking it up. I was like, why we as humans, why do we do this? Right? Logic should just tell us, hey, we make a mistake. Let's fix ourselves from the inside, because we're the ones that made it. But then there's different theories, psychological theories, that explain why we as humans do this. And two that I found fascinating, one of them is called the self-consistency theory, which basically says that humans need to believe that we're good. Like, we as humans, we have this belief that, hey, I'm a good person, or I'm good. So because we have this ingrained in our mind, and we believe this, then if that's true, then if reality shows us the opposite, guess what? We face cognitive dissonance in our mind, and for a lot of us, we just can't handle it. So then what do we do? Right? Then what we're going to do is that then we only have two options. Either we're going to improve ourselves inwardly, or we're going to adjust the explanation, which is put blame on someone else, which is cheaper and easier mentally. So then if we can do that, the idea of like, oh, we're good people, or I'm a good person, stays there, right? Or the other theory, which I thought was fascinating, is that looking inward threatens ourself, but when you throw it to a scapegoat, it protects our inner self, because having shame is neurologically expensive. right? And the self-defense mechanisms that we have within our brain, they're not lies. They're just emotional shock absorbers, because there's a difference between feeling shame and guilt. Guilt, you can a lot of times fix it. But shame, a lot of the times, is self-identity threatening. So a lot of times we don't want to deal with shame. So then we throw it to someone else, right? Because we don't want to deal with it. Guilt, oh, I feel guilty, we can fix that. So a lot of times it's easier to deal with that, but shame's a lot deeper, a lot more stronger. So we as humans, we do this. I just give you two theories. I saw like there's like 8 more theories of why
Yeah,
we as
yeah, yeah.
humans do this, but I just thought that was fascinating.
So basically, don't be the face of negativity if you don't have to be it.
Don't what?
Don't be the face of negativity if you don't have to be it.
Explain. I don't see what's the connection between that and what I said.
Um, because these people, right,
Mm-hmm.
they have to face these are emotional shock absorbance. So it's either you go one way or you go the other. Whether you change yourself or you don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least that's one of the theories you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the person that goes to the scapegoat side and
Uh-huh.
not have to change themselves because obviously it's a much harder route.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, if I don't have to be the face of negativity, I can escape from it.
Correct. Yeah, but by putting
Meaning,
the blame
meaning, if you don't have to be the face of negativity, don't be it. Meaning, use a
on.
scapegoat. Meaning,
Yeah,
if you have a way out, because sometimes people try to use a scapegoat, but it's like, bro, like, it's impossible at this point. Like, all the blame is on you.
and
We
everyone
know
knows.
it's you. Evidence shows it's you. There's no way out of this.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is a scapegoat and a person doesn't want to, feel that feeling of shame,
Mm-hmm.
they'll be like, oh, you know what? If I don't have to be the face of negativity of this, why should I be?
Mm-hmm.
I could just use a scapegoat.
Correct. But I think a lot of times we as humans, we do this subconsciously. Like maybe there's very few people who actually think, hey, I know I'm in fault, but let me throw it to the blame over here to this thing or this person or this group of people,
Oh
so I
yeah,
don't have to deal with it.
I feel like you have to be somewhat of an evil person to like if that actually goes through your mind.
Well, listen, it's happened a lot in history, especially with like
Right.
let's say Jewish people. They've been the scapegoat for so many things,
Oh,
where sometimes it was actively done. Like we're gonna throw
Israel.
what?
Israel.
Like Israel's bad or the Jews are bad or this and that, but they would just use as scapegoats throughout different periods of history. But we can do another episode on that for some other
That'll
time.
be a very long episode.
Oh God, we'll be here for 26 hours and a half.
I feel like also sometimes corporations do this, right? So
Mm-hmm.
instead of the CEO taking the blame,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you either let the system take the blame, the system that's implemented in the company, or like um, you let the people below you take the blame. Maybe like because usually, okay, like for example, a corporation will exist and the CEO runs it, but oftentimes he's not the one who you know
Takes the fall.
takes the fault or decides what the discipline is going to be or the layoffs of people. The managers do that, or anyone below him in whatever administrative work are the ones that take that role or take that blame or have to sit
Mm-hmm.
across this person and be like, yeah, you're fired, or this is the discipline that we have decided to give you. And maybe that was the CEO's decision, but he doesn't have to face it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Well, no, yeah. I mean, the book on page 205 is talks about something that you're talking about. I don't know if you remember page 205, second paragraph. It says, "Time history has shown time and time again shown the value of using a close associate as a scapegoat. This is known as the fall of the favorite." Where well, here it says, but I'm going to apply it to the corporations. Whereas like most kings had a personal favorite in court, a man whom they singled out, sometimes for no apparent reason. But this court favorite would serve as the convenient scapegoat in case of a threat to the king's reputation. And then the public would believe in the scapegoat's guilt. Why? Why would the king sacrifice his favorite unless he were guilty? So it's like, no, what you're saying. The CEO, I know you're so smart,
Manipulation.
so intellectual that maybe you're right. Corporations, maybe they'll have the CEO will find someone to blame, and he's like, let me have someone who I'm close with. The public will know. So when he gets the fault, there is no eyes on me because it's like I was close to him. So if he clearly is being blamed, they would never think of like me or what, like the CEO is blaming him because they were so close. So why would the CEO do that to him? Why would he betray him like that? But this is already such an old tactic. Find someone, and when the time comes, if you need him, throw him underneath the bus. Basically, that's really the tactic.
And that guy, that scapegoat, could be, working with you too.
Yeah, it is possible. It is possible. Yes, that is true. Yes.
Where it's like, you know what, just blame it on me. I'll be fine. You know what you and me are doing, and they're gonna be like, oh, he's able to blame his closest companion, then he's being authentic, but you're really not, just because both of you are in it.
Correct. But then that means that probably the person who is a scapegoat, and they know it, they gotta, I don't know, they gotta get something out of it, like get paid a lot of money or get benefits that are like crazy great. You're right, because if you're gonna take the blame and it's public, then you're definitely getting something somewhere else.
Right, or you don't want to be the face of this, but you're willing to take the hit. Like you don't want to play the role as the leader or as a person in charge, but because you're getting somewhat of a benefit out of it, let's say millions of dollars, then okay, you know what, fuck it. I don't mind taking the blame. I'll take the few million, and then I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like,
would you be a scapegoat for $10 million a year?
What am I scapegoating about?
Good question, because like I'm thinking like, what if like they want you to like be accused of like a horrible crime, right? It's like
he's a pedophile now. No, thank you.
No, that's too extreme.
That's very extreme for me to take a scapegoat out of that, But out of like, no, I don't want to say.
Don't say it, because then someone's gonna offer you that in a couple of years. Hey, I don't know. It said here that you would be a scapegoat for tax evasion.
5 years ago, you said on a podcast, and we were wondering if you were still interested. Like
I was like, I am, but the price has quadrupled.
I feel like it's a bit off topic, but not that we're not going to remember everything we said in these podcasts and these episodes, but sometimes you're like, damn, like I really said that.
I mean, I definitely don't remember everything I said. So if someone's gonna quote me, you better clip what I said in context and then show me.
Okay. Yeah, what were we talking about? What did I say before? What was the question? Like,
was I joking? Was it rhetoric? Was I being sarcastic?
Was it an inside joke? Yeah, it's hopefully people don't take our stuff out of context.
They probably will. So it's okay. Gotta get used to it.
It's part of getting famous. But anyway. But at least from these two chapters, I think we've learned a lot. Yes. I learned a lot. Some big takeaways I think from these both laws would be that power is like perception.
It is.
Power is perception. Reputation is power as well. I think out of Law 25, one of the main things is control who you are, right? Be able to recreate yourself, adapt, reinvent yourself if necessary, and actually always be open for change. And Law 26 would be more like control what sticks to you. And listen, if you manage how people see you and what they associate you with, you maintain authority even like in difficult environments.